You're listening to WCAT Radio, your home for authentic Catholic programming.
Hi, Msgr. How are you?
Well, I'm okay. I'm okay.
That's great.
Yes, I'm so happy that we can talk about my book.
Yes.
For me, this is foundational. What is the title? The Science of Foundational Human Formation. That is the subject. Actually, it's called that. And I have written on a theme, formative. From formative. Oh boy.
Oh, here I have it. It's from functionalistic. Is that it? Functionalistic willfulness.
Yeah, from functionalistic willfulness to
transcendent
willingness. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the book. It has been something very, very interesting to me. And so when I got to Duquesne, and in the formative spirituality section, school, and then after 1 year of studies, they asked me to choose a subject. And the subject is chosen with other friends who are working also on different subjects, but in the same field, to write a dissertation or a thesis on their subject. So mine was a dissertation, and of course, I said that is a title. It took me quite a while to debate on this title, from functionalistic willfulness to transcendent willingness. And the subtitle of the book then is formative healing, a distinct way to formative healing. So I think that is what we are supposed to talk about.
Yes, it is, definitely.
Yes, and how I went about it. So first of all, it is the late Father Van Kaam, and I don't know if you know him.
Yes.
Adrian Van Kaam, who came up with a science, and he is such a thorough person in scientific research. And as I have explained at the beginning of the book, and why I chose him to use him, is the fact that it has been very, very practical. He has been very pragmatic. That is how he eventually got to it. It's during the Second World War, and then they were all underground and so on, and Jew or pagan or whatever you were, but you are all human beings, and so you can share things that are common. So that is where he started out, and he came up with this science, the science of foundational human formation. And then I chose a subject, which is what it is, from functionalistic willfulness. So I think I may need to explain a little bit as to what functionalistic willfulness means, and then to formative transcendent pathway to formative healing. That's the subtitle. So, we as human beings, sometimes we think that when something happens to us, it is by the sheer force of our will that we can remedy the situation. And so is it when you fall ill, when you fall sick, and you think that it is just by forcing yourself, doing this and that, going to possibly the best doctors, and you completely exclude the transcendent. You completely exclude the transcendent. And so that is why I said that no, you need the transcendent. And but then how do you go about it? How do you go about it? And that is what Adrian Van Kaam has spelled out. You need to go out of your forceful willfulness, to be willful and to think that by your sheer willpower you can do things. No, that is not going to heal you, for instance, when you take as the story is. So I don't know what you may want me to say more about this, but I think this is what the whole thesis of 500 pages and more is all about.
Okay. So you really did develop it when you think that you can give us the information on what the book is about in a sentence or two, or maybe a paragraph, but then there's so much that you develop. It's like almost 550 pages.
That's
so
right.
The thoughts are very condensed, and you really do a very good job of breaking out what's really in those condensed thoughts and expanding on them. So I think that's something that people who know little or nothing about this topic will really find very enlightening.
In fact, that is what Dr. Sebastian Mahfoud has been saying. This is not just a common reading for the common reading, and it could be a research book that you use. Now, it is to arrive at it, you must use something concrete. As I said at the beginning, Adrian Van Kaam used local situations in the underground in Holland, how he observed how people do things and go about, and he came out with that. So he insisted that in order to really analyze your willfulness so that it can lead you to transcendence willingness, to a willingness which is you call abandonment. You abandon yourself to the transcendent, then you must take something concrete. And so that is where, I don't know if you most likely would have certainly read the italics passage of it, which is of what you received, which is the story I used. And it's a concrete story. Now, I'm just hoping that we are praying and preparing actually that the late Cardinal, who was my bishop at the time, he is the founder of the diocese, actually, of the Wa diocese where I come from. The story is between the two of us, although I didn't mention his name at all. But he it was who helped me, especially with a story that he told us when we were still young in school, like in the middle school, what we call middle school, and about Saint Aloysius Gonzaga, and that was inspirational for me for the breakthroughs of this book, the breakthroughs which have been all scheduled in this book. So I don't know what else I need to say about it, but it in 3 stages. You have from, that is a situation in which you are, as I tried to describe at the beginning, is something you are, a situation in which you are and which you think you can remedy just by sheer willpower. No. You encapsulate yourself in that, and that will not take you far.
Right.
So Aloysius was somebody, a young Jesuit, a novice, and he actually was also in a sick situation. That was in the time, I have forgotten the dates right now, but the time when you had a European epidemic, and he, as a young Jesuit novice, was helping people. And so he caught it also. And there he was. And then his approach to the divine or to the transcendent was that, if the transcendent would help him, would rather allow him through the Pope to give him, to permit him to say one Mass in his life before he may die, he would be so happy.
Yes.
Well, then the rest of the story, we don't know what happened to me. I don't know whether the permission was given or not. But this was quite inspirational, because in my situation, here I was in a hospital, lying down, sick. And then I, rather looking at it from another angle, was looking at it as something that God was giving me. God, and that's why you find it inside. You say, well, God, why do you let me, why do you, first of all, as the story begins, rather, the narrative of the story, the bishop who had come in, and I wouldn't pay any attention to him at all, turned towards the wall, because you are the one who appointed me to a place which was not so friendly, and eventually a young priest like myself would fall ill. So, and I didn't do anything else. But then, when the bishop persisted with his gentleness, just to pull me away from the wall, and so that I could face him to see, so that he could look at my eyes, then eventually, when I eventually gave in that gentle touch, that was the breaking point. And then he told the story. He repeated, just this simple question, Albert, do you remember the story I told you about Aloysius Gonzaga? And this was something which just came back to me. It blew me off like anything. And so I began to reminiscence and to come to the fact that, well, Saint Aloysius, this is what he wanted, just to be able to say only one Mass. And he was kind of begging, he was kind of, begging God if you could give him that through the bishop, the Pope. But then here I am. By that time I was 3 years or nearly 3 years ordained. And I had said Mass almost every day. But why was I complaining about God? Why was I complaining about my bishop? Faulting everybody else. That is willful power. That is willful power. And I thought by that I could get my way through to the healing that I needed. So, in reflecting upon Aloysius' story, it helped me a great deal. And then eventually, as I meditated upon it and reflected upon it, then I said, Aloysius, if Aloysius wanted just one mass, and here I am, I've said so many masses, almost 3 years, for almost 3 years, why should I be complaining? And then I began to see the goodness of God towards me, the goodness of the supernatural. And the bishop had just simply done his work as such. So I gave that to them. And then, this is what happens, Cynthia. As it did happen, then how do I go about analyzing all of this? How did this go from there to help me to really recover? And actually, not long after that, when once I started that process down that lane, I actually eventually became cured. Well, cured, better from the hospital. The poor sisters who were doing their best, and so on and so forth. Anyway, so I'm all confused myself, but I think this is what came out of the whole. That is where the whole thing comes from. Formative, functional. This thing, you go from a bad situation, a sinister situation. You go from to consonant, dissonant situation, let's say, as I call it, dissonant situation to a consonant situation. And so I think that's all I can say about it. The rest of it is the analysis of the methodology that has been used by Adrian Van Kamp, and that I used to eventually reach and to solidify to make practical my how do I call it, my own situation that that I had. Anyway, so I think that's how far I can go.
Oh, it's really a wonderful book, and it's something that it's not light reading. You have to take your time and reread. But there's an enormous amount of information, and myself, I think you're a master at what you've written. So people will really learn a lot, and I think it will have a dramatic impact on them if they read this. So.
Thank you. It has been very systematically done. It has actually, I must say, it has been very systematically done. The narration, to take the story and then go through it, apply Adrian Van Kamp's terminologies and components and to it. And that made it easier for me because actually it took me altogether 5 years to do that after the thing. So I think that is it. One thing that I have tried to make clear is what is the principles that are being used by the science of foundational human formation. And first of all, there are the presupposes. And the 1, 2, 3, I think there are 5. First of all, the human being, which is a soul, and not this thing, is formability. It's formability. And so you have a principle of formability in the human person. Yes. A principle everybody can form, reform, and eventually transform. And once you are convinced of this and you argue it out, you appraise this fact of this principle, you appraise this principle, then it helps you to affirm and eventually to come to what the human possibility is. Then it is this formation is not, formability is not just static. It is ongoing. And when it is ongoing formation, that is what all of us, let's say, I was not just born at this age or in this situation that I am, but it is ongoing. I went on to develop. And the element that makes it possible is the transcendence. The transcendence. Transcendent ability. I have the ability to transcend one position to the next. And then, if that is the case, what would be another principle that could help? And the other principle that could help for me is the formation field. And who is the formation field? Or what is the formation field? The principle of the formation field, if I can read that to you, tries to respond to the question, from whence comes form directives? There must be directives that direct you in this thing in your ongoing formation. And then this comes from, let me see, from whence comes form directive. And these directives, they come from the formation field. They come from the formation field. That is, from me as a human being, myself, my actions, my relations, and the world in which I live, the tradition that has brought me up, in which I've grown up, and so on and so forth. These are what help me to do the transformation. In fact, that still is heavy. It is heavy. It is heavy. And then you have to, after that, you have the formation tradition. You don't transform or form yourself in a void. You have to be formed in a tradition. And if you take America, for instance, today, we are speaking about the formation, the tradition, which is going on, the culture which is changing. Yeah. And which is not a good one. But that is what is forming now the younger people. That is what is forming now the younger people. Yeah. And so the traditions, you may call them tradition, culture, whatever, but you need to grow out of a situation like that. Then there is the fifth principle which is used from Adrian Van Kahn is the maintenance of the form potency. The maintenance of the form potency. Mm-hmm. You have to maintain it. It is not just you are formed, not just that you are formed once and for all. You have to maintain that form potency power in as you grow, as you develop, as you form yourself as a human being. So these five principles are very important, and those are all the things that help me to analyze my situation, how I went from an enclosed situation like I was just locked inside this thing, not in a bad situation, a dissonant situation, and that was it. But these principles helped me to really eventually get out of it. So, in short and simple of it all is that there is the formative action pattern. There is a pattern that shows. And that is, first of all, you have a from, and which is which is all found in the book or in the story which has been analyzed. That is formative pattern of action. The formative pattern of action, you have the dissonant situation from where you go. You are dissonant. You are in a very bad situation. Angry, willfulness, a situation of anger. I am very angry with the bishop and also with God and so on. But then how did I go through that? The truth is found in the fact that the story of Aloysius was the one thing that helped me to get into then the third situation of the pattern. So you have from, through, to. And that is very important for the book. If you are reading it and you don't have this in mind, then there is not much that you can get out of it. So I rest my case here.
Excuse me. Well, I'll tell you, your personality comes through in the book because you're thorough and you develop things so well. Mm-hmm. So it's, your personality comes through, and you can tell how. I mean, this could not have been an easy book to write. So, but I think it will do much good for many people.
Yeah, many people. That's why I was asking. I asked Sebastian about the possibility of having a few hard copies made, for which I'm ready to pay for. And because then those would be a kind of a consulting books, and not just something that you pull out from a library shelf and go and read, and that is it. It's a consultation. You speak about, okay, what does the formative action pattern mean? No, it is not just something that you just take a book, an ordinary book, and read, but it's a research book. Okay, you do some research. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's. I got to tell you, I don't think I'm a doctor too, and I've never written anything like that. I mean, not on obviously not on the same topic, but it's like it's.
Oh yeah, and I know. I've got my first dissertation was in theology, and again developed in a different way. I am first and foremost a moral theologian, and that was what is the title of that one? Christ solidarity. It is on solidarity. You don't enter heaven alone. You have to enter heaven solidarily with others. And then, how do you look at solidarity? It is, you look at it in I use the Second Vatican Council, the book, the second. I've forgotten what it is. I told you, Cynthia. So, but that was also different. That one was. Adrian has. I think he has it on already on Amazon now. Sebastian has it already on Amazon now, and so I know what you are talking about then. If you are a theologian and a fully Khalid one, and so this one is much more psychological and theological, and then thirdly there is the human. I'm forgetting all the terms now. Oh, Cynthia. Okay. So I think that is about what I can say right now.
Okay. Well, I'm very glad that that you wrote this book, and I think in many ways it's like the culmination of your work to this point. You know, it shows maturity of thought and clarity. So I do think it's going to do a lot of people a lot of good. So I would urge our readers and our listeners to purchase this. It's worth having and worth working through. So.
You know, that is one of the reasons why, I don't know if you know Dr. Susan Muto, or you might have read one or the other of her books.
Yeah. I don't know her personally. Yeah.
We worked together, and as things are, he wants me to come back to assume a professorial situation back in Pittsburgh at the academy. But I don't know if I will. They started using that book, especially the story, to for all the newcomers who came in to follow the courses there. And we, the two of us, he and I, are really, really great friends. Even just today we talked together. So I thought it rang a bell for her. And she is the one who has kind of lifted up the banner of Father Adrian Van Camp. She was his secretary, and she did quite a lot, and now she is the one. So she consults me for everything. Even here, she sent me so many writings that are related to Adrian Van Camp. Yeah. Anyway, so thank you very much. Yeah.
I want to thank you for giving me the interview. I know that we had to work for a common time that we could do it in. But I appreciate being given the opportunity. So it's really an honor to interview you, Msgr. It really is.
I appreciate it very much. I appreciate it. I was thinking I would get better and better indeed, and then to very systematically discuss this topic with you. And because I know you have been interviewing lots of people, writers, for this, for the encounter, or what is it, Bastian's field there. Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much.
Okay. You're welcome, Msgr, and thank you again.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure. It's a real pleasure. Okay. You a great bill for me. You have a good time.
Yes, my husband and I pray for you all the time, and I will make sure I tell him how the interview went. And once it's on the once the podcast is up on the computer, I'm sure he'll listen to it.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Okay. And my sister is saying that my supper is ready, so I'll go
Okay.
And
take care.
Yeah, take care also.
Yep.
God bless. Bye.
Hello, God's beloved. I'm Annabelle Mosley, author, professor of theology, and host of Then Sings My Soul and Destination Sainthood on WCAT Radio.
I invite you to listen in and find inspiration along this sacred journey we're traveling together to make our lives a masterpiece and, with God's grace, become saints. Join me, Annabelle Mosley, for Then Sings My Soul and Destination Sainthood on WCAT Radio. God bless you. Remember, you're never alone. God is always with you.
Thank you for listening to a production of WCAT Radio. Please join us in our mission of evangelization. And don't forget, love lifts up when knowledge takes flight.